Right when I thought that my job was done for today, I found out a ridiculous trade rumor that's coming from Shams Charania, so I don't want to hear any hate in the comment section down below, because it's from a reputable source. So before we get to the content real quick, this is my fourth video across 3 channels. We have a video on Tom Brady's jersey heist on my NFL channel Microphone. We have a NBA 2K21 Next Gen PS5 My Career upload on TheFlightMike TV. And this is our second video here. So do your boy a favor, if you're into one of those types of videos, go and check it out. Links to all that's in the description down below. Leave a like, subscribe, and turn on our notifications, bro. Now that we got all that out of the way, cue the intro. Mic check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? Guys, I have said in the past something that I really hate saying this because I am a huge John Wall fan, and Russell Westbrook went to my alma mater. But Father Time's undefeated, and tearing your Achilles on your non-shooting leg is absolutely undefeated. So with that being said, it brings great pain when I say that John Wall is easily the worst contract in the NBA. And that's why I was so surprised when I heard that the Wizards were able to retain Bradley Beal, and that Bradley Beal was so committed to remaining in Washington. Because I don't think a lot of people understand how horrific John Wall's contract is. As a matter of fact, I had a fan on Twitter telling me that he thought Otto Porter's contract was worse. If you take a look at Otto Porter's contract, it's an expiring contract at the end of next year. It's actually a pretty freaking good contract if you're trying to trade for somebody who wants cap relief. Like, theoretically speaking, I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but theoretically speaking, the Chicago Bulls could trade Otto Porter for Russell Westbrook if the Houston Rockets gave up a couple of first-round picks to get rid of Russell Westbrook's contract. But I don't think that's going to happen. This would be seen as a huge asset for the Houston Rockets because, well, Otto Porter's contract comes off of the books next year, whereas Russell Westbrook's contract expires at the end of the 2023 season, and I stand corrected. The Chicago Bulls will need to give up 2 players that have Otto Porter's contract in order to take in Russell Westbrook's contract. But that's not what this video is about, because when you compare Russell Westbrook's contract to John Wall's contract, it's even worse, because John Wall is officially in his second year of a huge contract extension that he signed that ends after the 2023 season. John Wall's also 30 years old, and he tore his Achilles. Now, I know you guys are thinking, Mike, why do you keep bringing up John Wall's torn Achilles? Well, being a John Wall superfan and an individual that actually owns John Wall's rookie jersey, you know, those blue Washington Wizards jerseys back from when Gilbert Arenas was a member of the Wizards, there's one thing I know that's abundantly clear about Jay Wizzy, and it's the fact that John Wall's game is 100% predicated on his athleticism, and Achilles tears typically sap a player of his athleticism. Now, I feel like we should give John Wall a chance before we completely write him off, but automatically I'm going to have this bias going into this season, even though I haven't seen him play for over a year. With that being said, according to our guy, Shams Charania, we got word that the Rockets and Wizards have discussed a deal centered on Russell Westbrook for John Wall. There's been no traction yet because the Rockets are seeking more assets. If you look at the replies to that tweet, a lot of people are very confused about why they would each even offer this trade. What would each side get? And I even made fun of it. I retweeted it and I said, hey, I'll trade you the worst contract in the NBA for the second worst contract in the NBA. Are you down? But let me tell you why each side would be interested in this trade. My very last video was about how the Rockets are officially rebuilding, and they showed that when they traded Robert Covington for a player who's past his prime in Trevor Ariza. He's like 35 right now, I believe. He's a dinosaur, man. He was a part of the Lakers' 4th championship. Think about that for a second. This is his 3rd time on the Houston Rockets, but they traded for Trevor Ariza and 2 first-round picks. When you make a trade like that, you're not trying to compete anymore. And that's what the Houston Rockets are indicating to us. They're trying to rebuild, which, if you ask me, is absolutely stupid. I think they botched the entire situation, and I think Tillman Fertitta might be competing with James Dolan within a few months for the worst owner in the entire NBA, because he's blowing up a roster that actually has some potential. He just needs to work around it properly. But this all started with Daryl Morey leaving and then hiring a rookie head coach, which is the wrong head coach for James Harden and Russell Westbrook. That alienated James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Now the Rockets have no choice but to rebuild. And when you're rebuilding, you are in the business of taking on horrific contracts like John Wall, giving up a player that's a minor upgrade. Russell Westbrook is a slight upgrade from John Wall in the sense that he hasn't sustained as horrible of an injury as John Wall has. So maybe there's hope in the fact that maybe Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal will be able to compete in a fairly weak East if you act like the Brooklyn Nets don't exist, and if you act like the Milwaukee Bucks don't exist either. At least a much weaker East than what the West is. So that's the Wizards' motive for making such a deal. If you swap a player that might not be the player that he once was for Russell Westbrook, hey, you have like 1 to 2 years to run it with Bradley Beal and Russell Westbrook. If it doesn't work, Russell Westbrook's contract ends after the 2023 season, which is in about 3 years. Meanwhile, he has a very similar contract to John Wall. Actually, he has the exact same contract when you compare it to John Wall. Both of these players are owed the exact same amount of money. Both of these players have very similar play style. The only difference is John Wall tore his Achilles. Russell Westbrook's stock and value as a player is at its lowest as it's ever been. So why would the Houston Rockets want to take on a player who tore his Achilles that has the exact same contract as John Wall? Well, it's simple. They're not going to compete. Whether they trade James Harden, keep James Harden, keep Russell Westbrook, lose Russell Westbrook, whatever the Rockets do, there's no way they're competing for a championship this year. And whenever you're not competing for a championship, you're in the business of taking on really bad contracts or downgrading your players in return for some assets. And in this case, that's exactly what the Rockets are doing. The Wizards probably went up to the Rockets and said, hey, this Russell Westbrook and James Harden thing clearly isn't working for you guys. How do you feel about John Wall? The Rockets probably said back, John Wall hasn't played in almost 2 years. He tore his Achilles, and although he's in good shape, we're kind of skeptical, and we're clearly getting the worst player here, even though Russell Westbrook's stock and value as a player is rock bottom. So in order for us to take on the downgraded player, we're going to need some assets. So that's making sense of this trade, because a lot of people didn't understand the trade, and this is why they would do it. Now, apparently there's been no traction so far, and honestly, I don't know if the Washington Wizards would even go for it. I know I bagged on John Wall a lot this video, but if you're going to give up assets to acquire a player, I feel like you should have confidence that that player will get you over the hump. And to be honest, even though John Wall tore his Achilles, I feel like upgrading to Russell Westbrook would be a marginal upgrade at best, possibly even a downgrade if things don't work out. But we'll just have to wait and see, because if you ask me, even though Shams reported this, I don't see this trade happening. So let me know in the comment section down below what you guys think. Aside from that, I'm your boy TheFlightMike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.